The trusted guide story is to dovetail it with the customer hero journey story. So as you go to the prepare for the climb modules, you're going to start with customer hero journey because you gotta start with your customer's world. That's a really important idea to me, because it's really not our place to be the hero and hope that if we tell the story of ourselves as the hero, somehow people will come along and want to be like us. Now, having said that, that is a methodology that can work and that a lot of people use. It's just not the one that I picked. But there are important moments where you want to talk about your story, but you want to tell it in the context of what the other person needs to know to trust that you know what it takes to help them on their journey of transformation, external and internal transformation. And in some ways, the internal part's even more important, but you can't forget the external part as well. So the inner emotional journey, as well as the business journey, the external success that people can see, that journey is important as well. And people have to trust that you're the person to take them that way. And it's hard for people to trust you if you haven't been there and done that and have had success. And that other people can vouch for you and say, yeah, that person's great. My life changed since I knew them. So that trusted guide story is a really important part of the toolbox. And you pull it out in different moments, but you've got to have a kind of a subtle understanding of when people are ready to hear it. And this is what I've noticed is, at least for me and the customer base that I'm involved in, I think people are pretty sophisticated. So you can't bomb-proof yourself from any bad information that's going to come in. It's going to come in, and a lot of it's very seductive and manipulative from good marketing. And it can sway you, but not for long. You're going to catch on. So when somebody shows up and start telling you their story, their hero journey story, talking about themselves as the hero, there's this healthy skepticism, and you're kind of believing them because they're telling you things we're almost kind of hardwired to believe. The idea of peer pressure, social proof, which Robert Cialdini talks about quite a bit in his book, Persuasion. It's amazing, the power of that. But when we tell our stories in the context of being the humble guide, where we can look at this person and say, the world needs you. If you transform and you carry on through the forest and you struggle through on your journey and you get out the other side, you're going to change the lives of other people who need you to do this. Well, that's pretty compelling. Am I selling anything? Well, kind of. I want you to work with me when I'm telling you that. And that's fine. I mean, there can be a business imperative. But whether somebody pays or not, you are providing value by helping them build that confidence that what they do matters and that you have a lot of free advice out there too. So you can stop at that. You don't have to sell anybody anything and get that conversion. You can inspire them and give them information that's helpful to them for nothing. I think we should all be doing that for business purposes and because it feels good. A combination of those things. But they may lean into it and say, how am I going to do that? I don't have what it takes. I'm blah, 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 blah. And they may not be telling you that because, we don't want to disclose that to people we don't know very well, or even people we know really well. We don't want to disclose it, but they may be thinking that. So you got to be aware that there's things going on under the surface with people. If somebody's talking to you, they're in some kind of pain. If you're at that phase of the story with them and you're talking about your journey, and they're really leaning in, they're in some kind of pain. So what happens then when you're connecting with someone on that deeper level around their story first, not just your story, but your story facilitates their story. So at that moment, if they've hit bottom, you're probably going to have a customer if they can afford what you do. Because that's when your story matters to people, when they've hit bottom. So if you think about any of the story arcs in the customer hero journey story, think about your customer hero journey story, which you'll do when you do the customer hero journey challenge climb, or maybe you've already done it. Now you're looking at this, which is the next challenge climb. Let's come up with a trusted guide story. You're looking at somebody that is really not going to make it without you in their mind if you've built that trust. But when does that happen? It happens when they hit bottom. So if you think about Cinderella hits bottom and meets the fairy godmother, Luke Skywalker hits bottom and meets Obi-Wan Kenobi. All these stories are like this. And the hero of the story is not you. So you've got to show up in the right way at the right time. That's why you need this sort of toolbox, this sort of array of stories, and know when to use them. Now, one of the experts in stories is Russell Brunson, and he wrote this book called Expert Secrets, which is very good. And I think one of the challenges with Russell Brunson is the markets he's in tend not to be very sophisticated people. I think they're, multi-level marketers, and they're selling vitamin supplements and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of the things he's doing won't really work for you or me, but the principles are sound and they can be used by anybody. And they're not his principles. He's getting them from years and years of expertise, of studying, years he spent studying direct marketers, direct response marketers, and really understanding the craft. He's a real expert in understanding the craft of what works in direct marketing. And I would not literally use his approach. I don't think it's appropriate for our markets as professionals, but it's excellent and it's worth understanding. So in this book, one of the secret number 7, he calls the Epiphany Bridge. And this is his approach to storytelling. So he talks about the inner journey and the outward journey. And he talks about not selling, not giving somebody the answer, not telling them what to do. He talks about the Epiphany Bridge approach. So what he's saying is basically the Epiphany Bridge it's simply a story that takes people through the emotional experience that got you excited about the new opportunity you're presenting. That's brilliant because you're thinking back to when you were like them. So you're not the expert up in the mountain talking down to them. You're telling them your moment of bottom, of when you hit bottom. Now, this can be done in a really cheesy way, really bad. So we see a lot of this. I can spot it immediately, and so can you. I used to live in my car, and I didn't have any money. And then I read Russell Brunson's book, and I followed his steps. And within 6 weeks, I joined his $1 Million Club, and my life has changed forever. Come on. I'm sure it's happened, but that person was going to make it no matter what, because they were amazing. But that doesn't mean anybody else is going to be able to do that by following those steps. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for 99% of the people. But the idea of the story, when used subtly with empathy and respect for the audience, I think is really good. And then you fit it into the customer hero journey. So I really do like the Epiphany Bridge story approach. And he's got some good ideas about avoiding techno babble. So when you try to explain anything in a complex way, people can't hear you. They stop listening. So you want to talk about emotion, and you want to talk about the journey that you went on, and what you went through, you know, that makes it really effective. And he's got a lot of good tricks, kind of little simple things that I try to remember that's helpful. Like, it's kind of like, so when trying to explain something complicated, you can say, yeah, you know, so this is called the Epiphany Bridge story methodology. It's a very effective marketing technique. It's kind of like when you hold somebody's hand and you go on a walk with them and you just build this trust with them where you're able to tell them that secret that they really need to know to change their own life. And because you've been holding their hand for a while, they just kind of trust you because you're trustworthy and they can sense and feel that. That's kind of what this is like, the Epiphany Bridge story technique. So I simplified it. It's kind of like, so if I'm going to say, you know, the Epiphany Bridge story technique is a methodology that allows you to start with people on the bridge and then take them here, you're not listening anymore. So it's kind of like you're making them feel something. And, you know, he's talking about kind of, you know, when people typically come into something new and into business, they get very excited about what they learn and what they're doing. And they want to advocate for that. They want to push that narrative on people, but they're not where you're at. So you got to cross the bridge and go backwards where they're at. And you've got to start to talk about where you were on the left side of the bridge and hold their hand across the bridge. And I won't go through the whole storytelling framework he uses because it's in the book. You can find this book, or you can look up YouTube videos. There's some really good videos of him just talking about Epiphany Bridge stories, 20 minutes of that. And it's probably good enough to really understand it, or his book's good, you know, overall. The methodology and the challenge claim I'm using is different. It's what worked for me. I worked with a storytelling presentation expert that helped me simplify some of this stuff and put it into my own framework. I'm not saying follow my method or Russell Brunson's method or anybody else's method. I'm just saying get your story straight and have one for yourself, have one for your customer, have a market point of view story, and start using them all the time. And don't talk in techno babble and jargon, and don't try to push a narrative onto somebody of how great you are. I mean, it works. You can say, okay, here's my airplane behind me. And, you know, when I was 5 years old, you know, I grew up in a trailer park, and then, you know, this amazing thing happened and I worked really hard and I made millions of dollars. I'm going to show you my 5 steps to success. You can be just like me. And look, here's my airplane. And here's 15 other people who bought an airplane because they followed my methodology. We're swayed by that stuff. And Robert Cialdini talks about it in his book on persuasion. It's called peer pressure, social proof. But it doesn't really work in the professional world very long. It'll lead to transactions. So if you're selling vitamins online, you can get away with it because you're never going to see those people again. But if you're selling coaching services or consulting services or technology implementation services or something, it's not going to get you very far. But the approach to that personal narrative, storytelling, before and after story, Epiphany Bridge story, works, and it's really powerful. And if it's anchored in purpose and it's put into the context of a customer hero journey, it's very powerful. And I think it's doing a service to the world, because you're one of the good guys then. You know, you're putting yourself out there in a way where people can understand why they need to work with you. And, you know, if you believe in what you do, they do need to work with you, but they can't find you. And they're stuck working with some of these people who are making it up, but they're better at marketing than you are. You're better at doing what you do, but they're better at marketing, and they're going to win every time. So you got to catch up and get the storytelling right, or you're just not going to have enough clients, and you're going to be taking the wrong kind of clients that you don't like, and you're just not going to get where you want with your business. And if you look at all the people who are really good at marketing and really successful, they have mastered these storytelling concepts in one way or another.